Welcome back to Generation Influence, a new podcast that goes behind the scenes to talk to the marketers and leaders driving the influencer marketing and e-commerce spaces. I'm your host, Bill Hildebolt, and I'm the co-founder of gen.video, a platform in the space. Today's guest is very exciting, Steven Vigilante, technically the head of business development at Olipop, but he does so much more than whatever that vague title implies. He was one of the founders on the founding team, does stuff in the capital raising department, leads out a lot of strategy, and most relevant for today's conversation for sure is right in the midst of Olipop's very innovative, very different, and most importantly, very successful influencer marketing strategy. So welcome, Steven. Before we get into Olipop, tell us a bit about yourself and your background and how you got here. I know you did some stuff in investment banking, so I want to hear about that because I did as well. And it's always interesting to hear how a recovering investment banker actually makes it into the world of operations and, makes things versus moving money around. So tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in New Jersey, went to Penn State for undergrad, was very much like a Northeast boy, super into sports and the like. Ended up joining Penn State's kind of student-run hedge fund as a sophomore, and ended up managing the consumer discretionary sector of the fund junior and senior year. And that's sort of what piqued my interest in the consumer packaged goods world. I was in charge of managing about $1 million of the fund invested into brands like Kraft and Home Depot, Macy's, Pepsi, Coke were in that ecosystem as well. And I sort of fell in love with it. I thought it was super interesting learning how these very big, complex organizations work. I learned that the 11 largest CPG holding companies actually own over 700 brands. I thought that was kind of a staggering statistic, and it's a little problematic when you kind of dig into that for a lot of reasons. And then I ended up graduating and wanted to try to marry the finance side of my degree with the consumer kind of interest in branding and consumer products, and ended up doing a stint out in San Francisco at a middle market consumer focused investment bank. And then became very interested in early stage investing, venture capital, startups through moving to San Francisco, really, and through my kind of just like personal network and watching Shark Tank, and ended up working at it was an equity crowdfunding platform at its core called Circle Up. That was sort of similar to AngelList at the time, and now like the Start Engines of the world, but solely focused on better for you consumer goods. And while I was there, we ended up raising a fund. So we were actually one of the first seed and Series A funds in the country, solely focused on better for you consumer goods. And I kind of became like the food and beverage guy on the investment team. And so that was kind of my journey in, through finance into kind of startup CPG world.
Wow, that is a heck of a story. And it's awesome. I do think it's actually great to have sort of finance, capital markets experience early in your career, because it does kind of help you understand the foundation of how businesses run, what some of the critical invisible drivers are beyond making a great product, which is obviously also critical. So that is
what's more important that you learn is investor psychology. That in and of itself, I think, is like one of the most important fundamental skills you need when you're fundraising. And in the seat that I'm in now is just understanding investor psychology and understanding momentum and the way that deals form and they come together, and the value of raising with leverage as a brand, as opposed to raising when you're out of money, raise when you don't need it versus when you do need it. Always, there's a zillion things I could talk about. Not the audience for this podcast, but that was actually the biggest thing I learned, aside from just like learning the ins and outs of the industry and understanding like how CPG brands and grocery stores and everything functions. But the investor psychology side of it was probably the most valuable lesson I got.
Man, I love that you said that. I think that is so brilliant and so spot on, because everyone wants finance to be reduced down to numbers and some sort of rational thought-making process. And honestly, the only thing that even comes close to that is the reality of pattern recognition, which, to your point, goes into the momentum and the psychology side of things. But the idea that somebody's got a spreadsheet and is making some sort of rational quantitative decision about what they invest in and what they support is just
everything's emotion and psychology driven.
absolutely
Just like life. When you're getting the very high levels of quant trade, hedge fund trading, and like super structured private equity, different, but early stage venture, no, it's
no way.
no.
Which is
it's pattern recognition. That's a really important skill, like understanding what a good founder looks like, what good co-founders look like, how they complement each other, you know, how they manage people, how they manage a team, like all that stuff I have picked up over the years, but you have to learn that with time and experience. You can't just know that inherently, but yeah, it's much more art than science at the early stage levels.
Which kind of explains how you've been so successful in marketing, to be honest, because people say like, what's a finance guy doing over here on the marketing side trying to run things? Because, you know, the reality is it's understanding where the data and the numbers come together with the emotion and how to interpret the numbers through the emotion. So I absolutely love that. That is,
see, I have no formal marketing training. I would never have called myself a marketer. I'm obsessed with culture and what's going on in the world. And as a soda product, it's exceedingly easy to insert ourselves into lots of different conversations. And I always tell people this, like, we have the easiest product to make content with. You could hold a soda doing anything as a creator and influencer. Like, it is so much harder to do anything content wise with most consumer goods, right? You can only eat cereal in certain situations, right? You got like a, you know, frozen, you know, chicken wing or something, like you're not just going to be holding that while you're doing your skincare routine in the morning, right? So, you know, the ubiquity of soda is another reason I think that it makes my job easier, to be honest.
But there is such a deep insight in that. I don't think that's as obvious an insight as maybe it feels to you, having done it and been successful with it. And so it'd be interesting to think about, like, are there corollaries that other people could think about? Because again, I love the way you guys have really, let's call it product placement is probably the closest definition, and you sort of redefine what that can mean in a social context. And so, I mean, you say it's obvious and easy. I think it's a brilliant insight, and so we'll let the viewers decide. But I love that. That is certainly a key element in the strategy. All right, so what we
I'll then just to connect the last dot. So I was at that fund for 3 years, and to your point earlier, I was obsessed with getting involved with the portfolio companies after we invested. I really wanted to leverage the network I built in kind of 2 years of running around at conferences and trade shows and meeting other founders and meeting other folks in the industry, and like be the connective tissue between our firm and, you know, getting the portfolio companies just immersed more into the industry. And so I got to a point with it where I was like, I really just want to go build something. I don't want to just be making the intro and walking away. I'd rather be the one doing the doing. And so ended up moving from San Francisco to LA. Actually went to another startup that had raised a relatively large Series A, looked pretty interesting on paper, was bankrupt in less than a year, got to go through like true chaos and like just watching the thing implode from the inside out. Again, learned a lot. Honestly, I'm a big proponent that you learn oftentimes a lot more in failure than in success. And then I actually, you know, it folded at kind of the perfect time in retrospect, because it forced me to start a consulting business and created my own LLC. And I started advising early stage brands on like fundraising, go-to-market strategy, you know, industry connectivity. And I was kind of starting to learn stuff about influencer. And like the first two founders I met were David and Ben, who are starting Olipop. And so I kind of came on to help with fundraising originally. We did that successfully, and then I came on as like employee number 2 or 3 in late 2018. That was into 2019. So ended up joining as kind of like a founding team member here at Olipop.
That is an awesome story. The other thing I pick out of that, because I myself spent some time as a VC, and you know, I think a lot of people think, oh my gosh, being a VC, that is like so much fun. That'd be like, that's an ideal job for me. I'd be great at that. I'm really good at picking, you know, winners. And the funny thing is that you recognize the same thing I did. I could do the math and like think through the valuations and all those kinds of things. I'm not sure I was great on the emotional side of like picking the one that, you know, had the true winner. But regardless, the thing that I enjoyed the most was working with the portfolio companies. And that's not actually the job. That's not the core part of the job of the VC. It is placing bets. And so the fact that you also recognized you wanted to be involved and help build things. That is it's a great, at a young age, right? A great
I
insight
have
to
like
have in
some
yourself.
weird soft spot in my heart and my brain for founders. I think you got to be the perfect blend of naive and crazy and interesting and risk taking. It's like this perfect, interesting blend of character traits that I personally gravitate to. And I probably know too much to ever do it myself. It's like you have to have a level of naivete, because especially in the consumer industry, it's so difficult and there's so many hurdles and you need so much money, and it's such a relationship driven industry that like skill and knowledge and IQ don't really get you that far. And so I don't know. I've had such a blast in building Olipop's been like just the greatest gift I've ever been given. But like, would I do it all over again another time around? I'm like, I don't know. It's a lot. It takes a toll on you physically, mentally, emotionally. So I love it. I wouldn't change a thing, but to do it again, kind of crazy.
Yeah, we might have to do a side, like create our own, like the Bill and Steven, or the Steven and Bill like podcast on living at the intersection between finance and entrepreneurship, because this is this is an awesome riff, and I think there's a ton of information out there that that could be
My
shared.
role really here was originally fundraising, still manage pretty much all of our fundraising, along with our two co-founders. And then I basically everything we've ever done on the paid marketing side of the business, from influencer, paid media, podcast advertising, and now talent and celebrity partnerships. I've touched and been very involved with, but a lot of it stems from fundraising. I meet a lot of interesting people through fundraising, and I've met a bunch of whether it's comedians, athletes, musicians, music artists, actors, actresses that have invested in the brand, and then now we're actually putting together marketing campaigns with and work. So it's like I have the relationships from that side of the house, and then can figure out the ones that we kind of want to really take the relationship to the next step with, and then pull them into marketing. And I can't share everything at this point in time, but we have some like really interesting things that we're working on with a handful of our kind of tier 1, tier 2 A-list celebrity investors, and those relationships all started out from the fundraising side of things. So being able to speak both sides of the language on the both sides of the business is super. And I also can talk about all the marketing stuff we're doing and how well the business is doing when we're talking to investors as well, which is an added benefit.
That is an added benefit. That is where being in a startup can be so much fun, when you are able to sit at the intersection of all these things and see the broad picture. So that's amazing. And actually, I don't know that I've ever heard anybody be able to quite sit as uniquely positioned across, like literally from the investors that tying directly into the marketing effort. So that has got to be a ton of fun. All right. So now Olipop is clearly an internet phenomena, but perhaps some of our listeners won't be as familiar with the brand. So can you tell us the origin story? What was the big idea, and kind of how did it all come together?
Of the business itself?
Of the business itself, the product. Let's call it the product even more than the business, because we've kind of talked about a little bit of the fundraising, but what's the core product insight, and how did those elements come together? Right time at the right place.
Yeah, the product is like the world's first functional soda, right? So there's lots of 0 calorie, 0 sugar, but chemical infused and artificially flavored and colored sodas out there, but nothing that's actually function positive for you, as we like to say. And so our co-founder Ben is a super genius, to be honest. He knows more about gut health than anyone I've ever met, and is also probably one of the best beverage formulators in the world, if not the best. And had been tinkering with gut health related beverages since he was in like literally high school in Northern California. And he had launched a kombucha product in his like 20s, and then a like fermented kefir kind of soda adjacent product prior to Olipop, and like learned a ton, took his lumps within the industry, right? There's this is a very difficult industry, especially coming as an outsider. And the insight with Olipop was basically that like 95% of Americans do not get enough fiber, and 95% of Americans, consume more than the allotted dose of sugar, both in a given day. And so you've got like all these gut problems. 60%-ish of Americans have a gastrointestinal issue at least once a week. Generally either caused by overconsumption of sugar. That's like the number one cause of stomach problems, and diabetes. And then lack of fiber in the diet is kind of the number two issue. And Ben saw an opportunity to actually create a product that actually tasted like a soda, tasted like a root beer, tasted like a cola, that kind of swaps sugar for fiber. So every can of Olipop has 9 grams of fiber in it and less than 5 grams of sugar. But we now have call it 16-ish flavors between seasonals and then our core line, and they're meant to mimic mainstream soda flavors. So we have everything from a cola, root beer, a strawberry vanilla, cream soda, a Dr. Pepper dupe, a Sprite dupe, grape, orange cream, cherry vanilla. We have a cherry cola. It's at Target. And it's been fascinating watching it grow. I mean, it's kind of surpassed all of our wildest expectations, all of my wildest expectations coming in as an early employee. And it's one of those products I think is very much right place, right time. People moving away from sugar sweetened drinks, but still want something indulgent, right? There's tons of low sugar options out there. There's tons of carbonated options. There's a zillion sparkling waters. There's dozens of kombucha brands. But neither of those really hit that soda occasion, right? You're either sacrificing taste or sacrificing flavor or paying way more than you should for a single serve beverage. And so we shake out to about $2 a can in general. When it's on sale, we're like 2 for $4, 3 for $5, and then a single can will be anywhere from $2 to $2.50. And so still double the price of a Diet Coke, but not 4 times the price like a kombucha is or a cold pressed juice. And so we have functional benefits. Really good product. It tastes amazing. That is the number one most important thing in the better for you food space, is you got to taste good to really matter to people outside of the coast and outside of Whole Foods. And then the gut health properties with the 9 grams of fiber in there, which is a lot of fiber. It's like Metamucil, has 5 grams of fiber in a serving. So
Wow,
80% more fiber than you'll get in Metamucil, which is wild. But it's part of our kind of DNA.
that is wild. All right, so a great product, arguably relatively unique, although unique doesn't always make it easy, right? Unique means that people have to create a pattern, a new place in their brain to put a product. And so that can be as much an impediment as it is an opportunity. But let's go with an amazing product. Again, right time, all those things. All that's table stakes for success. So marketing clearly played a big part. What would you say are the key marketing milestones or achievements that led to the breakout success that the product is today? Target distribution deal, influencers, like what to you on the marketing side was key?
I can sort of chart it out for you. Number one, 100 million% is product, right? You do all the research in the world, most marketing is ignored. The things that sell product are being on shelves and tasting good, right? Like word of mouth is still the most important way to grow quickly and efficiently, because it doesn't cost you any money for people to tell their friends about it. So first and foremost, product is incredible. Nothing would matter without the product. There's lots of brands that are very good at marketing that have subpar products, and that always ends up showing through, as they scale. All that said, we've made some very strategic decisions in the business at the right times that were, in retrospect, very much the right thing to do. We stayed in California only for the first year and a half of the business. I think that's an important factor. We did not sell product online or outside of the state of California from September of 2018 till January of 2020. We raised our Series A, end of 2019. We launched our e-commerce arm literally like Ep.1 2020, world shutdown March 2020. We were ready for it, and we went from 10,000 in revenue a month to $500,000 a month within 6 months online. And at the time, that was like half the revenue of the business. And so we really quickly were available nationwide when the whole world was shopping online, and our awareness went through the roof. So many people got to try it during the pandemic because we were selling online, and by selling online and by the world closing and us not being able to do in-store demos and events and going to trade shows, all we could do was digital marketing, which no one on the team had ever done before. But it forced us, in particular me, to figure out how it worked, which meant calling my friends who work in e-commerce and trying to figure out, how do you run Facebook ads? Who's good at influencer marketing? How does influencer marketing work? We never paid an influencer for 2 years of business. And so I was able to use relationships and friends to figure those things out. We started running podcast advertising. We started doing kind of like the full funnel e-commerce marketing stack, if you will. And again, that stuff worked really, really well, especially when the world was closed. We got very good at influencer marketing. And then that was kind of through 2020. And then 2021 and 2022 were much more about like broad retail distribution. So between call it January 21 and June of 22, we went nationwide with Whole Foods, Sprouts, Kroger, Target, Walmart, Publix, HEB, kind of all the major national grocery chains. So we scaled from like 5,000 accounts to end of 2022, we were in about 20,000 doors. And so we've obviously shifted things a lot as we've grown, and as we expanded in retail, we've kind of pulled back spend on customer acquisition for the site. It becomes a little less important when you're in all those stores. It's a different strategy if you're trying to drive someone to your site to buy a $40 12 pack versus trying to get somebody into Walmart or Target to pick it up for $2 when they've never bought something really healthy before, right? Totally different strategy. You need to be using, talking in different ways. You need to be partnering with different influencers. You need to be advertising on different podcasts. You need to be looking at different creative talent and different copy. It's a completely different strategy. And so last year when we went into Walmart, Target, Publix, HEB, we really had to rethink how we were communicating and who we were communicating with, because it was talking to a completely different customer. The Whole Foods mom is like squarely in the middle of the bullseye for us, right? And we know where they shop, we know what TV shows they watch, we know what influencers they're paying attention to. But a mom of four in Lexington, Kentucky is a different customer, right? And so reaching that person and getting that candidly much more skeptical person to try the product is a different strategy. And so I'll pause there. I could keep going, but
what's the takeaway I have is that, to paraphrase to a degree, it's like the marketing strategy is changing every 6 months at such a 100%. Rapid clip.
I'm obsessed with that comment because I say it all the time. And I think what the issue is, especially in better food and beverage, is brands take off in Whole Foods and Sprouts and they think they've got it all figured out. And then they go into Walmart and Target and the product doesn't turn because it's just another product on the shelf in there. It's not new. It's new, but it's a much less target audience for you, right? So you have to do a whole lot more to stand out. And it's where a lot of better for you brands go to kind of die, is in mainstream middle America, in the Southeast, on the shelves of Walmart and Target. And so, yeah, if you aren't reinventing yourself every 6 months, you're in trouble, especially in this space, because how competitive it's gotten.
Oh my gosh. Yes, it's so competitive. It's the fact that, you've got the courage, right, to kind of like continuously burn the ships. Cortez only had to do it once. You guys are doing it over and over, which is just amazing. So, all right, kudos to that. That takes a lot of courage, clearly. Let's dive in a little bit on the influencer side of this, because I know that's been such a key part of the strategy. You're a soda brand. You've got to think that you think about influencers very much as a top funnel type activity. Am I correct in that? Or is there some way that you are trying to tie influencer to bottom funnel and specific and funnel? Let's just go with specific actions, clicking on a link to go to the brand website to learn more. Or are you really just like, I want to get awareness. Obviously, I'm going to target that awareness, but I am looking for this as an awareness play.
Yeah. So when we first started influence marketing, again, during COVID, much less retail distribution, solely focused on driving orders on our website. So every influencer basically, it was only bottom funnel. Yeah. It's all I knew. It was discount code, swipe up, 3 to 6 frames. There's a script. It's very transactional. I almost call it anti-brand building. I think it, like, people know they're being sold to, and like they're going to try it once and the bar is really high on them trying it again. And it drove a ton of trial for us, for sure. It was the right move at the time. But then as the world opened back up in 2021 into 2022, and our focus on driving e-commerce revenue kind of like came down a bit, we just started moving away from that. CAC started going up like crazy. People just weren't as likely to just throw $40 at a 12 pack of soda. And our goals as a business started to change, right? I started moving from like knowing that e-commerce customer is like a pretty high likelihood, most likely pretty close to our Whole Foods and Sprouts customer, just from a demographics perspective. Once you go into Walmart and Target, the overlap of e-commerce shopper versus the Walmart shopper, much less than the Whole Food shopper and our e-commerce shopper. And so 2022 was all about how do we get top of funnel awareness and more with a mainstream consumer base. And so 2022 for us was the year of TikTok. So we created a TikTok account like Q4 21. Took me about 6 months of like intense trial and error and a lot of terrible videos and content to figure out a content strategy on TikTok, because that's sort of step one, is you got to have your own presence on there before you start working with creators and influencers. And then February 22, kind of finally found the two creators that are still kind of the face of our page. And then started doing some creator partnerships and influencer marketing, and quickly realized that the swipe up discount code thing does not work at all on TikTok. You can't even put discount codes in captions. The algorithm hates it. And so I was like, there's got to be another way. And so we started doing a completely opposite strategy where we were just sending product to creators and saying, can you just include us in your normal content? And we'll see if people respond or not. And if they do, then we'll look at, a longer term paid deal. And now we're close to 1 billion views doing that in just over a year. And that's just what we can track on our one hashtag. The number is probably significantly higher than that, but it's all product placement for us on TikTok. It's basically finding creators whose content we want to align with and having them include us in that content without even mentioning us or specifically calling us out. Some of them do, and some of them will be drinking it in the video, but it could be a cooking video. We have a construction worker who does the lunch haul every single day at his construction site, and we started, including ourselves in his lunch twice a week. And obviously we pay for that. And, his birthday just came and passed a couple of weeks ago. And so we just sent 30 pizzas to the construction site and had a big pizza party. And he made a video about that, and that blew up. And I've got these two twins who lip sync these very girly videos, and they always lip sync into a brush that's hanging from the ceiling. And I was like, wouldn't it be so funny if they did it into an Olipop can? And we did a couple of videos with them that did well. And then we had one that went super, super viral, like 8 million plus views on their page. It got picked up by like World Star, and it was everywhere. I've never had a video sent to me by more people in my life. Like 100 plus people sent me that video. And so again, they don't talk about Olipop. They're just singing, they're lip syncing into a can that's hanging from the ceiling, but the video went super nuclear, and hundreds of comments on it telling us to sponsor them, which we were sponsoring them. We had paid for that video, but people just see the can, like, sponsor them. So,
and that's what you mean by respond, right? Because you're saying like, we want to see how people respond, but if it's a sort of the subtle product placement and there's no link to click, respond is you look in the comments.
It's the comments. Yeah. It's it's very gut.
Yeah.
On gut. There are some who, like, you can tell really right away, like that. Those guys I immediately put on a 6-month contract, 3 videos a month. Like, there was clear interest from their fans. Sometimes you get it wrong too. Sometimes I'll do a video and like, a cooking video, or they'll include us at the end and like pop in thinking no one even notices this as a thing. And I'm like, you never know. But that's the beauty of this product placement stuff, that it allows you to test at a much lower cost. And if you have a dedicated ad video, video that's really like an ad with the creator, those often cost way more than the product placements.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I love it. I mean, you're getting the benefits you want without it being salesy at probably a far discounted, rate to, like you said, like any kind of dedicated video. All right. So I'm going to put you on the spot. As we were preparing for the podcast, we noticed that you worked with a gen.video employee on her personal TikTok channel. And her TikTok channel is called The Campaign Girl. I don't expect that you would know it off the top of your head.
I know exactly who she is.
Oh, all right. And so
I'm actually in our TikTok most. We have 2 gals who kind of run the page and make all the content. And then myself and one of the other gals, Sarah, we do all the commenting and all the responding in the DMs and all the gifting. So we're constantly watching who's posting us and seeing who's interacting with the brand. And like, if I find somebody that I think is interesting and is already sharing us, we'll put them on our PR list and send them product and bring them into the family. And then I do all of our commenting. So I'm in there commenting back on videos that we're in. I find trending videos or trending sounds that I want to kind of insert ourselves into, and I'll comment on those videos. And then any creators that I'm trying to get a hold of, or celebrities even, we'll just start commenting on their stuff. And it's the easiest way to get a hold of people at this point. It's just started interacting with them on social and see how their fans respond.
All right, we're actually want to come back to that thread, but I want to finish out this question, right? Because for those viewers who do not know The Campaign Girl, but is maybe implied by the name of her channel, it's basically a riff on her being in the influencer marketing space and, sitting at the intersection as a campaign manager between clients and the needs of clients and influencers, who are taking these sponsorships. And so that is a very specific niche. And it made me curious, like, how does something, and so maybe it started, you were saying maybe she did a product placement, an unpaid sponsorship, because she does love the brand. And that's what you noticed. But I was curious if there was anything that occurs to you about the subject matter of that channel that would make it a fit, because that was the piece I couldn't really figure out. Like, why does somebody commenting on the influencer marketing space as a meta theme, how does that fit with Olipop?
You know what? Not everything has to be perfect. Not everything has to make perfect sense. I think she was interacting with us, and to be honest, I like to show up in videos. Like her videos they perform well. She's got a good niche. I also know, like, we have the 2 social media managers that kind of run our page. Like, they all look at what they're all doing, right? All the brands look at each other. A lot of our For You page actually has a lot of other brands. Like, every brand is watching Duolingo. Every brand is watching Liquid Death. I think there's a lot of brands watching Olipop. And it candidly, within industry marketing is important. We're very active on LinkedIn. We just launched a new flavor yesterday. We're recording this March 17th. We launched our banana cream on our site yesterday. And you'll notice, like, probably 15 people on our team posted the creative on LinkedIn, and those posts cumulatively probably broke 1 million views on LinkedIn yesterday. The people who work in the industry are often all customers of these products. And these brands. And so, while that wasn't necessarily what my thinking was, to be honest, sometimes I like to find people who are passionate about what we're doing and get them in the fold. And like, if someone's already posting Olipop, there's a very high likelihood that we'll work with them, to be honest. Because if their audience already knows it and they're good at making content and they have a platform, like, often creators will message us like, "Oh my God, I love Olipop so much." I'm like, "Have you ever posted it? Would you be down to post for free and see how your audience interacts with it?" And some people don't like that. They like don't want to do anything for free. They think it's like taking advantage of the creator. And I'm like, I just want to do a little test. And if it's good, I'll give you a 3-6 month deal. That's fine. I just want to know up front if it's going to be worth it for us. And for you as the creator, you want to do partnerships that your fans react well to anyway. So, like, it's really simple to test. We send you a case, you include it in a video. If it does well, we do something together. It's really kind of basic.
Yeah. All right, that's awesome. And I love sort of the inside baseball there on how the industry absolutely is paying attention to itself and learning. And
100%. Like,
yeah.
If you work out a better for you food product, you probably shop at Whole Foods and Sprouts. It's a high likelihood.
Yeah. All right. So I loved the hands-on engagement that you've got. You're the one doing the comments, the guy raising capital.
It's crazy to me, to be honest, that I do that, but I love it. And I think it's like this connective tissue within our whole business that I'm able to, like, speak so succinctly to what we're doing on TikTok. And, like, I'm also, like, helping set our budgets and what we're spending on, paid advertising on TikTok and creators on TikTok. And I would never have known how much we should spend on that if I didn't see how well it was working from the inside out. And so it's also just like another way for me to, like, stay in touch with culture and trends and what I'm 31 now. I don't always know what's going on in, like, the Gen Z side of the world, but I can have a finger on the pulse of that by being in, I don't actually look at TikTok ever during the day. It's a time suck and I don't have time, but at night, often in bed, I'll spend 20-30 minutes on there just mostly going through our notifications. I mean, we get tagged in 100 videos a day right now. And then just between comments and DMs, it's a lot to go through. So I try to chop out some time at night or at the airport to do that.
Got it. All right. That was really my question. How do you avoid the black hole? How do you make the ROI on your time? And the answer,
you want to know the real answer to this question? Is
please.
Our algorithm is mostly the 2 gals who run the page, and they're the ones in there researching ideas and so, like, it's really their algorithm, and it's much more social media management type of content. And so, like, it just isn't, like, I'm not as interested in the videos that come up in our algorithm. And, like, that's how TikTok works, right? It just feeds you what things you want to see, and it's, like, not what I want to see. So I don't succumb to it as much, which is kind of funny. I mostly stick to our notifications. That's what
you're there for the interactions with the fans. Okay, that's super helpful. I love that. All right. You mentioned that we are recording this on March 17th. And so hopefully this will remain a timely question by the time this drops. But, as you said, you guys are all in on TikTok. You are the TikTok soda. how much are you thinking about, worried about the whole political climate and Congress and banning TikTok and all this sort of political rhetoric between the States and China? Like, where is that on your radar?
It's for sure scary. I am not in a world where I would be like, we wouldn't exist without TikTok. Like the business was off and running and doing very well before TikTok. It's been turbocharged by TikTok. But again, if it was removed for us, it's removed for everybody. My heart of hearts says the public would revolt if there was an actual TikTok ban in the US. I think it would be political suicide for whatever politician pushed it through. Like Gen Z would revolt. I pray and I hope there's a world where it's safely sold off from the Chinese parent, and it does its own thing in the US and puts people at some peace of mind. All that said, to our point earlier, you have to kind of constantly be evolving and rethinking things. And like, we're launching our first TV campaign in May. We have another massive idea for something that would probably come to fruition next year. We're moving much more into the world of talent and celebrity and kind of more traditional advertising, I'd say, with commercials, but things that are funny and could have some kind of like virality to them. And if TikTok went away, we would double down on stuff like that. That we've got some really good ideas in our back pocket. TikTok is just humming right now, and it doesn't totally make sense for us to like cut that, move that budget around. But if it were to go away, we would have, believe me, there's plenty of other places to spend if you kind of know what you're doing and have taken the time. And again, I've taken so many calls with so many people over the last 4 years. Like, we have a zillion ideas and a zillion things we want to do. So if TikTok went away, it would be a bummer, but we've got lots of other ideas in the hopper that we would be able to act on with that budget reallocated. So
that's awesome. I do want to touch quickly. You mentioned the celebrity side of things, and so is that at its core? Do you guys view that as just a magnification of the kind of product placements you're already doing with the zillion little TikTokers, or does it look very different?
The product placement is very top of funnel, right? That's getting people to see it and know what it is. Not even necessarily know what it is, but know that it exists. And then that super lower funnel influencer stuff that we talked about earlier, that's to get people to buy. We've got another platform called Kale, that's an influencer content creator platform that actually pushes people into stores. They have to buy at least 4 Olipops. They can text the receipt into the Kale app. That's their application to create content for us. We then approve or reject, and then they can upload their content, through the app to their social media accounts, and then we can pay out based on how the content performs. So that's very bottom of funnel to me. It's getting people into store, it's creating UGC. We can license the UGC if we want it. I look at celebrity as being kind of in the middle of the funnel, right? So there's like massive celebrities that you can work with that will post, or you can do an ad with that they'll post on their channels, and you'll hopefully get some really nice trickle down with their audience. I'm actually very obsessed right now with trying to find up and coming artists that like are probably on the cusp of getting approached by a Coke or Pepsi, but like might not want to go that path because of like they're 23 years old and that's just not aligned with who they are as a person. And an Olipop is something that's much more like who they are and who their DNA is, and they're not just chasing a paycheck at that point. And so we just did a big product placement in a music video with this woman named Renee Rapp, who is a 23-year-old she actually played Regina George in Mean Girls on Broadway, and then was cast as this character Leighton in The Sex Lives of College Girls on HBO. And she also is a music artist, and so she put out her first EP last fall. It was amazing. It kind of took off. She sold out a tour right away, and then she actually just put her first kind of major single and music video out for the extended edition of the EP that dropped on the 24th of February. We shot the video on the 10th. And there's a scene, she had actually written a scene into the video where she was going to shotgun a can of something, and they had reached out to us. I was already interested in working with her. I had been talking to her record label, and when the company who was shooting the music video itself reached out to me, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. Like, I would love to work with her, and this feels like the right way to do it. And I mean, it was a massive home run. Like the video, it's funny, this is how the internet works right now. That video is about 500 million views on YouTube. The clip of her shotgunning that was cut from the video and put on her fan page on TikTok is at 10 million views, just of her shotgunning the Olipop. And so the chatter around that moment in the video So that to me is like middle funnel, right? That's like culturally interesting. It's something that people share and talk about. For people who know Olipop, they're like, holy shit, that's cool. For people who've never heard of Olipop, they're like, what is this? What are they doing in Renee Rapp's video? Like, this is awesome. It's not just showing up in some video on someone's account when they're reviewing a food or making dinner. It's in the middle. It's going to get people to go to the store tomorrow and buy it. Maybe some, but that's not the point, right? It's to do something cool and interesting and different. And like, you know, Pepsi would never, right? She would never be shotgunning a Pepsi in a video. Like that just wouldn't happen. So doing things that other brands can't do, I think is another kind of way to think about that.
I love it. I love it. All right, I got 2 questions left. The first one, I want to talk a little bit about launching new flavors. I noticed banana cream. And if I'm getting this right, banana cream was a limited edition. You then got pulled back.
You did your homework over there.
You got it if you're going to run a good podcast. And then you brought it back as a permanent flavor. And it made me wonder, I don't know, call it the cynic in me or something. Is that an intentional strategy? Let's put something out. Let's get people excited, call it limited edition, bring it back, get everybody like, where'd it go? Bring it back. And then you like relaunch it with like all this additional momentum of the consumer behind you. Or is it just, now, look, this is how we go. You try something, you see if it works, but you're not really scaled to do it.
So
and then if
to
it
answer
works,
your question directly, there are seasonal in and outs with retailers. So our crisp apple went into Sprouts in November. It was the #1 selling item in the whole beverage case at Sprouts for either December or Q4. I can't specifically remember, or maybe it was just the period that it was in there. It blew the doors off. So that one, we're like, okay, that one's a winter seasonal. It's for sure coming back next year. It was awesome. People want that to be a full-time flavor, but you can't, if you say something's a seasonal and then it becomes full-time flavor, you kind of maybe could lose some trust. This banana cream flavor is a different story. This was a collaboration with the Minions. So Universal Studios put out the Minions movie last June. They do a whole, like, part of the strategy. Universal is partnering with like-minded brands to do co-created products that support movie launches. And so we got to license the IP from them not to speak too directly about the deal, but it was effectively a trade of services for marketing support for the movie, and then we were able to create the product. But we only had 2 months to sell the product. It was right around the movie launch. Couldn't use it after that, and we thought it was a joke, to be completely honest. Like, we didn't think people actually want a banana soda. It's not a very popular thing in the US, very popular in Asia. But the movie went super viral. The product was just weird enough. It sold out in 3 weeks. And people freaked out, and they were pissed, and they were like, "Oh, is it actually a seasonal? Is it actually a limited?" And we were like, "Yeah, we literally are not allowed to sell this product again with the Minions packaging on it because of our, the way the contract worked with Universal." And so, lo and behold, a couple of the buyers over at Whole Foods were obsessed with it and really wanted us to bring it back. And so we repackaged it and just relaunched it with Whole Foods here in March of 2023. So again, that one was totally supposed to be a joke. It was never supposed to be a permanent flavor. It was never supposed to even go to stores, and is now our #1 selling flavor at Whole Foods this month. So you just never know how consumers are going to respond. What we learned with bananas is they're very polarizing. Bananas are the #1 thing bought in grocery stores, and people curse word. People either love bananas or they hate them. And so the people who love this product, like, absolutely love it. And it's kind of all you can ask for, is for people to care, right? If you launch a flavor and no one cares, that's the worst case scenario. So.
Exactly. No, I love that. I can imagine. And there is no, I can think of, an incumbent banana soda. All right. My last question. We were both bankers, and so I got to ask my favorite banker question of all time. Are there any questions that I should have asked but didn't?
I do like that question.
Right? That's the banker.
We covered a lot of ground here. I think we could have done a whole nother episode on all the other things. Learned a lot about podcast advertising. I've learned a lot about paid media, Facebook, YouTube, all those things. That's probably a separate conversation. I don't think so.
Excellent. Well, maybe we will be back. I like that. I like that idea of, I do think we could have gone another couple hours.
I'll leave one thing here that I think is really important. I hear so many people say this to me when they ask about, how does this platform do for you? How is influencer doing? How do you know TikTok's working? If you try to measure everything you're doing, you will never do anything interesting. If you only do the measurable stuff, if you're only tracking CAC and ROI and how many people are converting on your site, like, I don't know, 15% of our revenue now is online, 85% is in store. So if we only were tracking what people are converting from an Instagram post on our site, like you're not going to do anything interesting, and you're never going to reach a new audience, right? You have to pay higher CPMs and take more risk if you're going to reach a new customer base. And so like the people who are, it's really, especially when you're on the entrepreneurial side and you come from like a data background or finance background, it's in your DNA to measure everything. But like the reality is the best marketing can't totally be measured. There is plenty that can be measured, and we're kind of getting into the world of media mix modeling and brand intelligence studies and surveying and all that stuff. And it's interesting. It's for sure interesting, but like you can't just make decisions only based on data, because you'll never. That music video was like a phone call. It was, can you do this next week? I was like, this sounds great. Negotiated a little bit, got it done, and boom, the thing did 20 million views, right? It's like, if I try to pencil the math of what we were going to get out of that, well, like we wouldn't have never done it. It would have been crazy. And then it ended up being like one of the best marketing investments we've ever made, right? So you would never do that if you were trying to pencil the math on every decision.
I can't think of a better place to stop than a finance guy saying sometimes you got to go with your gut, which you said at the beginning and you bookended it at the end.
I'm a gut guy.
That was awesome.
I'm a gut health guy and I'm a gut decision maker.
Exactly. I love it. All right. Well, Steven, thank you so much. This was amazing. I cannot wait for this to drop. I appreciate all the time. I love the idea that maybe we can revisit the conversation and go even deeper someday. But again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure everyone will have loved to have been able to tune in and hear your insights.
Cool. Good to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for everything.
Bye.
Bye.